Hello, my name is Kat. If you're new here, welcome to my little humble space on the internet. On this channel I do things like knitting, spinning, weaving and occasionally other crafts. If you're new to any craft or you've been doing it for a long time, I hope that this is a space that you want to be part of. Either you can help teach me or hopefully I can help teach you or inspire you to try something of your own. This is a project that started as an idea years ago. Actually, I'm going to check that. Yeah, so this idea came to me in November of 2020 when I started my knitting masters, knitting guild journeyman project, which is something that I would really like to return to. But, you know, life happens and I hope to put aside 12 weeks where I can focus on it and make that little dream happen. But when I was thinking about it, I thought that it would be amazing to tell the story of The Lord of the Rings through a rug or wall hanging. But it felt like quite an overwhelming commitment, so maybe that'll happen, but I don't think that's the route for that project. I think this is a much more apt approach to the idea. What do you think? We'll get into the authenticity of it in a little bit, but first, why do I want to retell the story of The Lord of the Rings through a hand-stitched version of the Bayeux Tapestry? I love the idea of experiencing history, not all of it. It's definitely a case of historical craft and ancient craft and modern values here. I want to feel what it's like to tell a story in this way, to spend potentially years with this project, planning each part quietly and hopefully amongst a community, which is kind of where you come in. I could really easily have worked on this project alone, or my partner Alex, if you haven't met him before, hopefully you'll meet him very soon. But I could have done that alone, and that was the initial plan. But having thought about it a lot, it's been on my brain a lot. Perhaps more than it should have, but I'm really excited. I thought, wouldn't it be amazing to make this more of a collaborative project where not only are we telling the story of The Lord of the Rings, but we get our own story in our own right, almost? Anyway, that's the why. A little overview of the tapestry. Although it's called a tapestry, it is in fact an embroidery. It is linen cloth with wool thread. It is almost 70 metres long, just over 68 metres. It tells the story of the conquest of England by William, Duke of Normandy in 1066. It is approximately 20 inches wide, with the embroidery being about 17 inches from what I can tell. It's really hard to gauge without seeing it, so that is definitely on the list of things to do. Looks to be about 2 inches of decorative strip, followed by about a 1 inch strip of text, and then I'm guessing about 12 inches of the main illustrative story, and then you get the repeat of the 2 inch. And it does look like there is some sort of decorative hem, which is again something I'd like to explore. I have read on my wanderings that the horses are about 10 inches tall, so I'm thinking that reads kind of okay. The tapestry primarily uses 4 stitches, with stem stitch being used primarily for the outline and the lettering, and the Bayeux stitch used for colouring in big sections or the blocks of colour you see. I'd love to dive deeper as to where this stitch originated. From what I've read so far, there are extant examples from primarily Scandinavia, leading researchers to have an inkling that that's where it was originally from and passed along. But from the 11th century there is also a find from Durham, which is quite interesting. It's actually not far from where my husband was born. Other stitches that are used sparingly are chain stitch and split stitch. All of these stitches are really simple to do, and I hope to sit down and do a short video with Alex where I'll show him how to do the stitches. So if, like him and myself, you are new to embroidery, you can hopefully join in too. The piece uses 10 colours of naturally dyed wool, and initially I thought we should stick to that, and again this is another question that I'd love to put to you, is do we try and limit it, or do we buy a palette, stick to a palette and choose it collaboratively and that's what it is? Or On the other side, would it be nice to include and have the scope to keep within a palette, so a natural palette and one that really is evocative of the Lord of the Rings, you know. Or, so this decision, is it be more authentic and stick to 10, or be more open and still evoke the tapestry and the colours, more importantly, of the Lord of the Rings to me, and allow other people to get involved, so whether that's natural dyers, indie dyers, or yarn companies maybe that want to get involved and have their little colour dotted around, like, I don't know, I just think this is a really fun aspect to consider still, is the colours. Like, it will make such a big difference, like how it finally appears. I just think this is so interesting, like it's such a dilemma, but a fun one to explore. Like, do you use, because I think the colours aren't quite right, it would need to lean more earthy to me. The reds, I don't know, but Mordor should be red, you know. But this is just quite an interesting thing to think about, and I'd love, again, your input on this. Anyway, let's carry on. It was thought to be 9 panels long, but it is worth looking into if you're interested. Another panel has been found, making it up to 10. So we'd be looking at 9 or 10 panels. Again, this adds more questions. How authentic do we want to be? Do we want to have a bit of flexibility? Do we want to make it longer than the 68 meters, if that doesn't include the extra panel? But I think this should be a collaborative decision, like, to figure out this project properly and give it the time it deserves, because it's going to be a big one. Getting involved and next steps. I think gauging the interest is really important on this, because I think 6.8 meters is an undertaking alone and with a handful of people, but if more people decide they want to get involved, then we could maybe do the full-size piece. That would be kind of mad, but that makes a big difference on how long we get to tell each part of the story. So that's one decision that I'd love to work on with you. And then the next step, I think, is to loosely plan a storyboard based on the length we're talking about. 6.8 seems sensible. We're trying to aim sensible and manageable rather than pie in the sky. I think I have a set of locations, but again, it's like, do we go deeper? Do we add a few more? Like, do we add the prancing pony, or do we just go from the Shire to Rivendell? What do we think? But I am currently thinking the Shire, Rivendell, Lothlorien, Mordor, Gondor, Rohan, Isengard, Van Horn, Mines of Moria, Helm's Deep, Bree, and the Dead Marshes. But maybe again this requires a series of polls or a way of gathering ideas to hone in what it is we end up going for. And once we have loosely planned, then I think it's a time to come to some sampling and choosing the font and choosing that kind of thing, so getting the cohesive feel kind of put together, samples of what we want our horses to look like and our people to look like a little bit. I'll show you my sampler in a second. I had a lot of fun doing it. And then I think it's a case of settling on the yarns, whether that's something like Jameson Spindrift, or Jameson of Shetland maybe, or something that's easy enough to get hold of in the same colour. But then we open up the floor to design once we have an idea of what we need designing and how much of it, and you know, I can't wait to see a derpy medieval style Balrog. I really can't. That's all my brain's been thinking about lately. And then it's a case of like the really exciting things, hopefully for you as a craftsperson or a designer or an illustrator, to come up with the words, the storytelling that comes with the images, designing the little decorative strips, and maybe what we want the tablet weaving, if there is along the hem, tablet weaving. You know, I'm leaning into adding a little bit of a nod to Scandinavia, but in particular the Bayeux Tapestry, because that kind of holds a place in my heart. So maybe it would just be the Bayeux tablet weaving, which is again something other people could get into and be part of. I don't know, but this is where, you know, it all starts to come together when we're getting ideas, and the idea being that either it's the design that you send and then we stitch it, or dreaming big-ish, you know, for a little hobbit, we take it around, so take it to yarn shows, craft shows, you know, heritage museums, open air museums, or, you know, even cosplay events, and you can actually physically sew on this. I think that would be so fun. Or maybe it's a case of we have guardians and panels get sent, and if that's an interest, does that make sense? Like, I just feel like it will be so nice to both work on this quietly at home for me and Alex personally as like a together project, but to also, like I said, create our own story by making this together. I just can't wait to see, hopefully, people making this, like stitching and chatting and telling their stories of how they discovered the Lord of the Rings, or where they first saw it, or their favourite bit, their favourite character, maybe singing some Bombadil songs, like. Anyway, here is a little look at my sampler. I am new to embroidery, and I can safely say that this is an easy, gentle and relaxing process. I ended up using moss green linen, just because it's what I had to hand, and I kind of chose a palette according to what I felt would be right for this image in particular, and I did try and limit it, and I have to say I really enjoyed the addition of the naturally dyed yarn that was dyed with like flecks and speckles and variegation, because it worked so good on the flowers. It meant that I didn't have to change colours or anything, and the same with on the bricks. It just adds a little bit more dimension without any extra effort. All I did was I drew out a sketch and then I transferred it onto the fabric just in pencil. There's probably a quicker, easier way of doing this. Excuse you, Audrey. But it worked well enough. I actually did this in the car, but I can see many hours of sitting at home listening to audiobooks or music or talking with Alex, or how it's easy enough to do with other people, like sitting and chatting at a craft night or a knit night, and instead just sitting there hand stitching on this big beautiful piece that would be easy enough to work on with multiple people at the same time. Like I said, I did do this in the car, which did make it a little bit harder, I must say, to get it exactly where I wanted it, but it kind of feels a bit more medieval and a bit wonky. So it kind of works, right? The font, or the text, I tried to do what I think of as being traditionally the Lord of the Rings, like the Hobbit font, with a touch of elven, so the little bits being a bit of an elven nod, and I think it's come out quite medieval and looking right. I don't know, what do you think? Is that the font? Has anyone got a better idea? Maybe we do full elven? Maybe we do full elven for parts? I would like to do a lot more research on this, and I've tried to hold back a little bit because I would really like to go and see the original in Normandy. I know that the museum is closing for a bit of renovation quite soon, so hopefully we can do that before it does. You can see the whole thing online in so much detail, so it kind of isn't necessary, but I think for me it will just give me that kind of deeper understanding, and I can do some measurements and get a little bit more in. And then I'd like to understand the story it's actually telling a bit further, but also I'd like to research more of The Lord of the Rings. I need to do a re-listen. What a shame. Any excuse. I will pop a link into the below lands, the Underdark, with a link to seeing it online, because it is amazing. It's amazing how clear they've managed to upload it for us, for everyone to see. It's really cool. I would also really like to go to the Reading Museum, which is actually only a 45-minute drive from us on a good day. Not so much on a bad day. But they have a full-size, I say replica, but a Victorian made version. It is the full version minus that panel that may or may not return back to the original piece. But it was made by 35 Victorian women in 1885, and it's full size. It's a rep. I would love to go and see that, to see how that was done. Did they limit the colours? I imagine they did. Did they use natural dyes? I imagine they used natural dyes, but I'd love to go and explore that and see, you know, see it in real life, get a bit more inspiration, get a bit more of an understanding, and get on with this fun little project. Anyway, I hope this brings you a little bit of joy in the turbulent world that we are living in right now, and I hope that it sparks some joy and creativity maybe for you. And I do kind of hope that you might consider being a part of it in some way. Maybe come into my little Hobbiton. If you would like to be a part of it, let me know. I'm not quite sure on the hows or where, so maybe here, answer my questions here for now, and then we'll gather where we're at and start formulating plans for the future. While I remember, I am wearing the Hobbiton Vest by Fibre knitwear. I made the smallest size, and I used Alex's hand-dyed yarn, as well as Kelsey of Knitting Nakabi, who got the lighter green you see in this using natural dyes, which is amazing. My top is a mock-up. It is used in cotton muslin, and I don't know that I'm actually going to make the proper version just yet, or for a while until the weather turns. But it is inspired by Bernadette Banner's 18th century pirate shirt video with some modifications, and I can't wait. I've got a beautiful Viking brooch to wear it done up like this, but today it's too warm, so we're like this. But yeah, I'm also wearing an 18th century style petticoat, which I made a year ago, 2 years ago. I wear it all the time. It's very simple, just out of a heavy black linen, and yeah, kind of Hobbit energy. Oh yeah, this is tablet woven using the Usberg pattern, but you might not see it. It kind of blends in with my hair, which is weird because the yarns were an undyed natural silk and a purple and lilac-y dyed yak silk blend, so maybe I have yak silk hair. I hope to see you again very soon, maybe with Alex learning the stitches for this tapestry. I've never said it, but if you do want to be a part of this, it might be worth subscribing, and don't forget to love each other.